So good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Top Biller series. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by Olivia Adams from AGS Associates for episode 5. Olivia is 6 years into her recruitment career, and I had the privilege of working with her on and off for about 3 of those, which is why I can vouch for her unstoppable drive, a razor-sharp consultative edge, and a knack for solving problems. Olivia's track record speaks volumes, over 60 consecutive billing periods. That's why she's earned the crown as the Queen of Consistency. Olivia, it's an absolute pleasure to have you here today. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks, Josh. Good to be here. I'm excited.
First off, shed some light on how you've achieved your success so far.
I mean, I don't know where to start, but I think the first thing I would say was a lot of great training and advice. I mean, I started straight from uni, so I had no experience in the industry whatsoever. So I think I would attribute a lot of it down to, a lot of great training. One thing that I always say as well is consistency with my actions. I'm a big believer in doing the same thing in and out every single day. And especially if anybody's worked closely with me or even in the same office or whatever, that organization is like a key word for me. I think the organization always can result in efficiency. A lot of people want to become more efficient and want to work more efficiently, but I think the foundations of that is based within organization. So yeah, I would say a number of different things that maybe helped me get to that, but that's definitely kind of touching on the top couple, I would say.
You billed last year over 500,000, this year on target to do 600,000 by the end of December. What was your light bulb moment when you realised you're actually good at this?
I don't know if it was ever a specific moment because it's so ongoing, but I think there's definitely been times when I've made specific placements in my industry. I've seen it been announced or something like that on LinkedIn, and I've kind of looked at it and I've thought I made that happen or I helped make that happen. And I think they're the kind of times where I've been most proud of myself, is when you're actually making a difference within the industry that you work in. So yeah, I think making that impact is when I kind of realized maybe I'm actually good at this. Maybe people want to listen to, what I do and how I can consult and things like that. So yeah, I think it was probably an ongoing light bulb moment, but that's definitely one thing that I look at and I'm definitely proud of for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. If you could go back to the day you started 6 years ago, what would you go and tell your rookie self?
Gosh, I mean, the first thing I would say would be neutral with your emotions, because otherwise if you let yourself go with every wave in this job, you will just honestly drive yourself crazy and it will be so emotionally tough. I think it's really easy to get down when something doesn't go very well, especially at the start. It's such a high pressure environment. You really want to succeed. It's competitive. So yeah, I think it's good to obviously celebrate wins and get excited about things 100%. But in recruitment, things can fall out, processes can fall out as quickly as processes can fall back in or, be created. So I'm a big believer in kind of not letting yourself go too much with the waves of the industry and just kind of, taking it as it comes and not dwelling on things too much.
Yeah, good. I mean, you've touched on process there. Let's go into that a little bit deeper. Can you walk us through a typical day?
Yes, so I get in, much to probably everyone's surprise, no coffee for me, never have drank it. I just run on pure, I don't know what, maybe energy. I have no idea. So yeah, no coffee for me in the mornings, but I'll open my laptop, I'll open my 4 main tabs, which everyone will know is like LinkedIn Recruiter, our kind of internal CRM system as well. I'll respond to any messages, emails that I get over the evening. I will then write out my day plan, which might be a bit kind of prehistoric to most people who love to type things nowadays, but I'm still very much a big believer in writing things out and ticking it off when I've done it. So yeah, I'll write out my day plan. The morning is predominantly quite admin focused, just where a lot of what we do is based, or what I do is based in the US. So due to the time difference, then everyone's kind of waking up in the afternoon. So that's pretty much calls, clients, candidates all afternoon. I think what I do daily is very similar. I'm doing kind of the exact same actions every day. I'm just inputting different locations, different positions that I'm working on, different vacancies, different people that I'm talking to. So the actions are quite repetitive, but what I'm actually doing with the people are different. So it keeps it exciting in that way. But yeah, the process pretty much every day is very similar.
Okay, so that line of consistency definitely runs through not just you billing 60 days in a row, but also in the day-to-day duties as well.
Yeah, I think I'm definitely a creature of habit, to say the least.
So what's your client development strategy?
I do prep. I like to prep things. So I definitely research into the market, the main players that I'd want to kind of strategically reach out to. I then look at kind of the services that they deliver and maybe a skills gap within their business or a service that I could provide them that, you know, might be unique that they might be looking for. Yeah. I also have a lot of referrals. So I say to clients, like, I kind of try and plant the seed. If there's anyone you know of or any, you know, similar individuals to yourself that you could help me with, that would be great. So always kind of plant the seed for that. And then from developing a client, it's very much, for me, it's really understanding what they're looking for, wanting to be an extension of their business. I've, you know, gone out to the US, met a few clients, and I think one of the biggest things that they have said when I've asked them, you know, what could we do, if anything, better, you know, because that's always a great question to ask. And they've just said, continue to give us what we've asked for, not what you think we want. I think, you know, a lot of people can think, oh, well, they might want this candidate, they might want this individual, this skill set's good, but actually, you know, if unless you're giving them exactly what they've asked for, you're effectively kind of wasting their time. So yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things, is how to, when I build repeat client relationships, it's definitely just been, you know, if they've asked me for a vacancy that's quite niche or something that I haven't worked on before, I'll take it on if I think I can do it. And that, because I know that that's their burning need. Once I've filled that, then they'll respect me for, you know, supporting them on what they really need. So yeah, I think definitely just giving them what they've asked for, not what you think they want, is a big thing.
Yeah, that's certainly something that I've seen from a lot of recruiters who there's a lot of presumption in what they do rather than actually actively listening.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that that's the biggest way to, you know, turn off a client, is to just push everything you've got at them. I know I always say to clients, you know, I'm very transparent with them. I'd rather not send you a CV for, you know, a week than send you 3 in a week, and it kind of just wastes our time. So you might not see something from me for a week, but when I do send you something, I know they're going to look at it and they're going to know that I've fully, you know, vetted, and that's why I genuinely think that's a good fit. So yeah, I think that's super important.
Absolutely. You've someone who's billing pretty much every 4 weeks. How do you manage your pipeline?
So I think I obviously have like a document on Excel where I track pretty much everything, as I'm sure you can imagine. The organization, yeah. But I think I would just say over communicate. I think, you know, a lot of people will set up interviews and just say, well, the first interview is the most important, or the final interview is the most important. But actually, I would say that the ones in between are kind of the crucial steps between that person either getting hired or not. That's when they really dig into the details of their technical skills, culturally, etc. The first is always very introductory, and the final, by that point, you know, they've either got the job or they haven't. So it's actually the middle stages of the interview process, I would say, that are the most important. So yeah, I would say over communicate. We don't just set people up to talk and then them do the rest. You know, we want to try, and it's our job to find mutual interest between the individuals and make sure we orchestrate the fact that they might talk about that and they might get on like that. So yeah, I think, you know, we can be very influential in processes. There's been processes in the past where the clients turned around to me after they've hired the individual and said, look, if you hadn't said that, or you hadn't, you know, implied this in X, Y, and Z conversations, we probably wouldn't have found that out about the candidate, and we probably wouldn't have hired them. So, you know, I think people underestimate the influence that we can definitely have. And that's just by over communicating and definitely just keeping involved throughout the whole process.
Yeah, that's something that you're very good at. A number of people involved in terms of your clients and candidates, and providing feedback instantly, and also pushing for feedback, which isn't always something that clients are willing to give. Talk a little bit about your mindset, because putting billings in every 4 weeks, you've been doing this consistently for, you know, 60 periods. What keeps you motivated other than the leaderboard?
I think, and this might seem really, really strange, but leaderboards don't typically motivate me. And, you know, if you ask like managers I've had or colleagues and things, like, I don't really get motivated by the, or X is above you now, that kind of thing. I think, if I know that I'm doing the best that I can every day, then I'll end up wherever I end up on the leaderboard, and that's kind of where I belong. So I think for me, it's, how I run my day to day is that I do look at things relatively short term, which might be quite contradictory to a lot of people, looking long term, we're trying to achieve these numbers, X, Y, and Z. But I think if you take one day at a time, and if you're consistent in the small things and doing them really well every single day, then the results will just naturally follow. It's funny, I always ask one of the guys in the team, like, what week of what month or what period are we in? I'm never really too in tune with where we're at. I'm always just looking day to day, and I know that if I do the best I can every day with my actions, then things will definitely come from that. So yeah, it's probably not your typical competitive kind of recruiter answer, but I think obviously there's competition, and I love that, and we have incentives and things, and ideally I'd love to get on those, and say I have, but I think leaderboards don't typically motivate me too much. It's more just making sure that I know that I'm doing the best I can.
Good. Let's talk about rejection. You're working multiple roles. I'd imagine you probably do receive some rejection at times. What's your bounce back strategy?
I try not to let it affect me too much. And I think I can say that now 6 years in, but 12 months in, 18 months in, it affects you. And like, it's totally normal for it too, don't get me wrong. I think it's always really important to like reflect on the rejection, or maybe why it's not why it's fallen out, why the candidate hasn't taken it, why the client hasn't decided to offer, and always see what you could have done better, because there will always be something. Sometimes things fall out for reasons completely out of our control, but it's always good to even then just go back and ask the candidate, is there anything I could have done better in the process? Or ask the client, could I have done anything better that would have maybe helped you with that process? After that, and kind of identifying what you could have done better just to learn for next time, I think you've just got to keep going. I think the longer that you do dwell on things, the more opportunities are just kind of passing you by. So yeah, I think kind of look at it, reflect, move on as quickly as possible, and the next opportunity will just be around the corner.
Yeah, I think you've touched on something really important there, is that to actually find out why it hasn't worked out, and go to the client and go to the candidate and ask them that question. And you're learning from their mistakes, then hopefully you can prevent a lot of this moving forwards. How do you avoid burnout in such a high pressured role? I
think I'm probably really bad to answer this. I very rarely take holiday, probably other than this month. I've had a few holidays, but I think when you genuinely love what you do, in terms of like, I genuinely love the clients, the candidates that I support. I find what I do really interesting, like the markets, the process that I have. So I don't typically find myself burning out or getting to a point where I'm like, oh, I'm bored, or I can't be bothered anymore. It is important to have your downtime, because that is normal. It's normal to get to some stages where you're like, well, I just need a break. But I think I don't believe that it's a job that you can do half-hearted. I think if you don't genuinely love it, I can imagine it is really tough. And that's maybe when you've really got to look at it. So yeah, I think definitely a few holidays here and there, keep going. But yeah, other than that, I think just if you love it, then you shouldn't probably get to that stage too much.
Your thoughts on tools of the trade. What tools or tech have you used that's helped you build more?
Again, I mean, maybe call me old-fashioned, but I don't typically change up my process too often. I mean, obviously there's tools and things that can help you be more organized, getting admin done quicker, like ChatGPT and things like that. In my opinion, recruitment is obviously all about the people and the relationships. And I think that, that can never really be replaced. There's definitely tools, systems and things, CRM systems that can make sure that we don't forget about candidates or whatever. But I think at the end of the day, what we do on the phones is probably one of the biggest tools that we have, and that can never really be replaced. So yeah, that's probably, again, maybe a bit old-fashioned. Maybe we don't love change, but that's probably my answer to that one.
Yeah, fair enough. The old-fashioned way. That's good.
Yeah.
Any hacks you swear by for time management or productivity?
So yeah, I mean, again, organization, folders. I have all my folders like locations, positions, that kind of thing, which everyone in the business that I work in will obviously know that I just harp on about 24/7. But I'm a big believer in it. I also think that, not putting admin tasks off so that they then build up and they seem like such a bigger job, is that's when people will be like, oh, that's such a big task to do. That's why I think a lot of people don't like admin, like sending follow-up emails and things like that, is because they just let it pile up at the end of the day. For example, that's when you're most tired. That's when you've got a long list of things to do which aren't maybe directly making you money. You know, that's probably when people will start to hate admin, if you will. So I do those kind of emails, do those kind of tasks as soon as they happen, like our CRM, uploading X, Y, and Z. I do that as soon as I've done it in the day, meaning that I never kind of end up at the end of the day with a long list of things that I just really cannot be bothered to do.
What's one skill every recruiter should master in 2025?
Again, I'm going to repeat myself. Organization, I think the more that you don't have to remember, the more like space it allows in your brain to connect the dots. I think a lot of what we do is definitely connecting your dots, you know, remembering candidates and things like that. If you can find their information with a few clicks, it just gives you more time and more ability to just think of, well, where could that person be perfect for? What client could they be perfect for? So instead of having to try and remember all these things, write it all down, get it all in the right places, and then use your brain for the things that you can't, you know, ask ChatGPT. The connection of the dots is the biggest thing for me, I think.
Leadership and legacy. What advice would you give to someone aiming to be the next top biller?
I would say focus on just showing up every single day. It can be a really daunting job and industry when you first look at it from the outside or when you first start. So I think just make sure that if you turn up every single day, you're consistent with your actions, it will lead to results long time. I would also think never stop learning, irrelevant of how much you've built, the numbers that you've achieved, the awards you've won. I think that, you know, no one's ever completed it in this industry. You know, I'm still daily put up with challenges that I've never experienced before, and maybe somebody else has, whether they've been here 6 months or 6 years. So I think, yeah, irrelevant of kind of tenure, billings, numbers, etc., always just make sure that you're consistently asking for advice, and that will just mean that you're getting better and better. You
touched on there about self-development. What books or authors are you following or reading? I've recently just finished Atomic Habits, which was really interesting. It's a really good book. I've also read one that's about like the colors. I think it's called something weird, like I Hate People or something like that. I can message you after and you can put it with the video, but that was really interesting. Yeah, it might have been. Yeah, it was really interesting. But Atomic Habits I really liked. There was a lot of there was a lot of things that I took from Atomic Habits that, you know, you can kind of just implement daily. And I think with books, like, it's easy to self-improvement books. There's so much in there that it can sometimes be quite overwhelming. Whereas with Atomic Habits, there was a lot of kind of small things that you could just adopt like that day after reading it, you know. So I think that was quite a good one. Definitely phone call. I think, you know, you can put stuff in email, etc. You know, and I'm a big believer of email is important. But, you know, phone call, you can really show them who you are. You've got your flair, you know, you can be unique. You can set yourself apart from a lot of other, you know, people. And there's a lot of people in the industry. So, yeah, definitely phone call. Okay. Client objection you secretly enjoy handling? I love it when I hear, oh, well, what about other recruiters? Why are you different? Why are you this? Or we work with other recruiters. I just think that's such a, like, obviously it happens and it happens a lot. But I think, you know, it's your one chance to really evidence why, you know, they should work with you and, you know, your skills and what you've achieved and that kind of thing. And I think, you know, you can answer it very, very logically as well. You know, it makes a lot of sense for clients and candidates to work with one individual, protects their reputation as well and things like that. So, yeah, I think that's one that when I hear it, you know, I secretly enjoy. I think it used to probably fill me with dread, but now I kind of like it, which is, it's fun. This is relevant to your background, your sporting background, Liv, in that if recruitment were a sport, which one would it be? Oh, well, I can't say I've ever done this, but I would say it's like running a marathon. You know, it requires a lot of endurance. You know, you have to be quite strategic on what you do, but also, you know, the ability to persevere over long, long periods of time. I think, you know, the everyday training, the little bits here and there, you know, consistently turning up every day to achieve the long-term results. So, yeah, I would definitely say it's like running a marathon, which, you know, I might do one day, but I'm running my own recruitment marathon, so I'll stick to that for now. We'll put you down for London Marathon, hey, for next year. Oh my gosh. We'll see me there. What's your prep style before big calls? I think it's definitely just, you know,
being very familiar with the company, ensuring that, you know, if I've contacted them regarding something, I'm very clued up on what I've contacted them about, whether it's a candidate, whether it's, you know, a difference within their business, things like that. My specific experience tailored to their core areas as well. I think that's super important. But I prep to an extent, but I also think just getting on there and being yourself, being human. I think, you know, we can read scripts, we can do this, etc. But at the end of the day, people buy into people. So I think preparing so that you don't sound like a donut, but also just being yourself and kind of just going with it, I think is probably one of the biggest things as well, to be honest.
Good. Okay, well, I'd like to open the questions up to our audience.
What would you say it is specifically that does make you different in comparison to those other recruiters?
I think definitely it's, you know, it's referrals and things that you've done, recommendations before, but I also think it's just that like human aspect of it and genuinely caring about what you do and being an expert. I mean, I'm preaching to the choir, Charlie, you're an expert in what you do, but I definitely think that, you know, a lot of recruiters will be out there, they'll be able to find candidates, they'll be able to do whatever, but really understanding a client, understanding the problems that they have and being able to solve them, other than just filling a vacancy, I think will massively impact them differently than it would just if you're a recruiter sending them a candidate, you know? So yeah, I think being able to find a client's problems and really helping to solve them, you're having a much bigger impact on their business than maybe just finding 1 or 2 people a year. So yeah, I think definitely kind of outlining that to clients and having that kind of business acumen will go a long way.
I've got a question. Morning, both. Is there, well, what's the most impactful placement you've made in your career, do you think?
I would say, so there's an executive in Southern California. She's also a woman in construction, which is clearly something that I'm incredibly passionate about. So I think personally for me, that meant a lot, but equally, you know, she's very, very good at what she does. She's very influential in the market and also some important community impactful projects as well. So for me, you know, that was super important. She's still there a number of years on. She's loving it. You know, we've helped to build out her team and things like that. So that for me, just the women in construction aspect of it, but also the impact that she has in the community that she builds in and the projects that she builds, I think was, you know, one of the biggest things that I was like, that's pretty cool. I'm proud of that.
Hi, Liv. It's Hoff here.
Hey, Hoff.
I've got a question for you as well. What would you say is the biggest difference between a transactional and a value-driven relationship with a client?
So I always say that, like, I think that repeat clients and things like that will always have to start with a transactional fee. I think that's where they always start. So I have no objection to transactional fees as long as you're getting the respect and the buy-in from the client. Like, you know, Josh, and we said earlier, if they're not responding to you with feedback, if they're not timely with the things that you can give to your candidates and stuff like that, you know, the feedback for your candidates, then it's a reflection on us more than them, really, if we can't get that feedback. So I think it's just the buy-in from them, it's the consistency in the communication. If they're not communicating with us, then I think that's probably more of a transactional. But if they're open to continuing to discuss, you know, needs and things like that, then obviously that's a good foundation by the sounds of it for a repeat client.
What would you say in the years that you've had in this game is the most important thing to, say, grads first coming in, consultants first coming in who want to just get themselves underwater and rolling as fast as they can?
I always say just be a sponge, listen to everything, everyone that's talking. I think obviously people love to listen to music, listen to their podcasts and things during the day. I'm a big believer in no one will ever see me with headphones in unless I'm on the phone in the office. I'm always listening to what other people are saying, how other people are phrasing things. And I think for me, when I first started, that was a massive thing that really helped me progress quickly, was just listening to how other people do it and then honing my own style, because we're not robots. We're not going to all do it the same way. But I think picking things from everyone in the office and then kind of making your own, whether it's, you know, the Will way of doing it, then I think that's probably the best thing. And, you know, just listening to everyone and building from there.
Excellent.
I think one was just written, but I can't see it.
Any tips or tricks to break down the initial barrier with a client who maybe is hesitant to get on the phone?
Yeah, so I think, some clients won't initially want to get on the phone, and I get it. They're probably getting so many emails, so many requests to get on the phone, and everyone only has so much time in the day. So I think maybe a bit of back and forth, and if you've reached out with a candidate, understanding a bit about, where their need might be, what their need might be. I always use a phrase that's, it's in your best interest to get on the phone with me. At the end of the day, I don't want to waste your time, send you people that, aren't a direct hit. So if you've got 5-10 minutes that we can really just talk through some of the specifics you're looking for, that will mean that we're both then saving time in the long run. So I think if you just outline it really logically like that, then it makes sense for them to get on the phone with you. You're going to save them probably time reviewing resumes over the next 2 weeks of you just sending in random people that you think might be a fit. And I think, if they're not willing to give you at least 5 or 10 minutes to jump on a call, if you've explained that logically, if you've got someone they might be interested in, then are they really, a good proposition? So yeah, that's kind of probably how I would go about that, definitely.
Well, bang on 9 o'clock. That's impressive. Thank you very much. That wraps up our episode 5 of the Top Biller series. Thank you very much, Olivia Adams from AGS Associates. Thank you.
Cool.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for watching, everyone.